Yesterday was an incredibly low-scoring day in baseball. At the time of our recording here on Tuesday, there's been one shutout already. Where's all the offense gone? It's August. It's supposed to be hot. The ball's supposed to be flying out of the park. Fred and I discuss on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Jeff Erickson. He's Fred Zinkie, the man by the doorknob. Fred, what's going on? How are you doing? How's your offense doing these days?
I don't want to talk about my offense, but I had two good pitching performances last night. Actually, this is a great week to have gone two-star pitchers, isn't it? Since they were pretty much all great last night.
Yeah.
Right? Like typically on a Monday, most of those pitchers were started in most leagues. Since we lean towards, if you risk Tucker Davidson this week, it has so far paid off.
Yeah, and if you risked Drew Smyly yesterday against the Cardinals, a team, by the way, I posted this question on Twitter. I asked in the last 30 days who has the highest WOBA, who has the highest WRC plus, kind of doing a rolling averages sort of thing. It's the Cardinals, and they've been shut out. They got shut out today by just a random collection of pitchers. Drew Smyly shut them down yesterday. It's just the Dodgers got shut out by Eric Lauer and company. It was a really bad day of offense in baseball. I went 4 for 39 in my better main event team and gained 2 points in the overall standings. I don't understand.
Yeah, I think it was just like I said. It was just a day where if you had some pitching going, you probably are good. You can handle one bad day from your offense. I really don't think this is the start of a trend. I think it's just a blip where everybody kind of went cold all at once. It was just one of those days we talk about in a couple of weeks. Hey, remember that one Monday where no one could score? And who knows? Maybe it'll bleed into tonight. But I don't think it's something that's a trend or that's actionable.
Yeah, I don't either. But I do know that run scoring is down, not just yesterday, but generally speaking, this last month was very disappointing offensively. Joe Sheehan was written about this extensively. We talk about this all the time. Baseball wants to try to speed up the game. They want to do little things like that, pitch clocks and, limit number of pickoff throws, ban the shift. No, it's the baseball, and it's that pitchers are wizards. I think it's so obvious that those are the real reasons, and that these little things are these cosmetic things that usually are catered to help the people that work at the games get the game over with quicker. It's a faster game doesn't necessarily equal a better game. I went to Padres and the Padres game on Thursday night last week when they had 3 hits, and I'll tell you, it was dreadfully dull. It was a dull game. Padres Nationals, it was 3-1 was the final, and it was only 3 because Hader had a meltdown in the 9th.
Yeah, and what makes a pitcher's duel great is when they don't happen every night, right? So you're like, okay, we've got, Corbin Burns against Garrett Cole tonight. It's going to be amazing. These are the best pitchers. This is a pitcher's duel. If Drew Smyly's in a pitcher's duel, and and Jordan Montgomery was last night, and
Anibal Sanchez was when I saw him in person. Anibal Sanchez, he was $8 million ERA.
So it takes the specialness away. I was in as far as attracting young fans. I know I recently had a conversation with a teenager who was at a Blue Jays game. I forget, it was a few weeks ago. And I said, "How was the game?" And he goes, "Oh, it was terrible. Nobody scored after the 3rd inning." And that was his takeaway. He's 15. We're trying to attract young fans.
Right.
His takeaway was the game was boring because no one scored after the 3rd inning. And I can't totally disagree with him. As a young fan who's not heavily invested into advanced statistics or whatever, he's just thought the last 2 hours I just sat there and nobody ever scored. And I bet there weren't very many base runners either from that game.
No, there's a couple of walks here and there, but
yeah.
And I do appreciate a good pitcher's duel, but like you said, it's every night. And the thing is, it's such a battle of the strike zone. It's such a battle of trying to max out contact. And when you take away the one thing batters had, which was launch angle, and take away that, it becomes an impossible game. Batting averages are way down. It's not because they forgot how to hit. It's because it's really hard, difficult to hit.
Yeah, really hard. Yes, yeah. It's really hard to hit. So, and I don't know, like you said from Joe's newsletter, maybe the takeaway here is to get aggressive with your 2-start pitchers down the stretch. Maybe there's not as much to be lost from that. Like I said, if this week, if you just went out and grabbed the Drew Smileys and the Tucker Davidsons and pitchers like that and just rolled them, we'll see how the end of the week goes. But the start of the week, you probably lowered your ratios. So I don't know. Maybe that'll end up being a takeaway. We'll see in the next few weeks, but maybe that'll end up being a takeaway in a few weeks where there'll be some teams who just went for it and kind of just threw caution into the wind, which usually doesn't work. Maybe it'll work this year.
Yeah, Tim and I nearly benched Eric Lauer because of this Dodgers start that he had. Boy, I would have felt bad about that. He was dealing. It wasn't like mowing him down, but he got you a shutout innings and a win. I mean, that those are ever so valuable. So yeah, I'm really glad we didn't, but it was nearly a mistake. Of course, Adam Wainwright can't get do much against the Cubs today, but so paybacks are hell. But and nonetheless, it's one of those scenarios there where I'm kind of really worried about that there. So it's one of those things there where it's a more enjoyable game when there's a lot of offense. And that's really the big takeaway from all that there for me. Let's look at some of the guys that are struggling to hit and some of the guys that are doing well. Who, like, a couple of guys I want to talk about here that are, maybe struggling a little bit this season hitting wise. Michael Harris wasn't struggling. He was fine. In fact, he's a hero. He's a stud. If I lose him, I'm in trouble. But it's like, there's a couple of guys that are just not getting it done. Like, I look at like Josh Donaldson, and even all the buffoonery aside, he's just having a blah season. And he's a guy that is an active guy on one of my better teams, and I just have like hitters like that all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, it does lower the bar as to you can get playing time on waivers. Mm-hmm. That's not that hard. Like if you sort on Sundays by at bats in the past 7 days, like you can find plenty of guys who had 20 plus at bats, but finding people who are doing something with them is a lot harder. Like Josh Donaldson, like you said, for example. So let's say he finishes the season healthy. He's going to end this year, like, unless something changes, he's going to end this year with like 15 or 16 homers. He's hitting 221. His runs and RBIs will each be in the 50s, probably. That's really bad, like for someone who doesn't steal any bases. And he's going to be in lineups, especially in 15 teams, like in lineups the whole season. We're talking about a corner infielder who's may not get to sit, definitely, I would say almost definitely won't get to 120 combined runs and RBIs. He's at 97 right now. 15 home runs, like 2 steals, pad batting average, and he's sitting in a lot of lineups right now. Yeah,
he is. And it's really bad. I debated this week, Josh Donaldson, who's going to have 3 games in the first half. This is NFBC, where you have the Friday switches. Josh Donaldson for 3 games, or Isaac Paredes, who I think has 4, who we don't know is going to play. Isaac Paredes is no great shakes, but he's ahead of Donaldson a little bit. 14 homers, 34 RBI, 37 runs. So a little behind on the counting stats, but 14 homers. I mean, that's not nothing. I mean, turns out I'm going to have to use both starting on Friday. We just lost Vinny Pasquantino, which really but that's annoying because I have him in everywhere. I got Vinny in 4 out of my 5 NFBC bidding style league, 6, 4 out of 6. So that one hurts all across the board, especially with a Monday injury like that.
Will you cut him on Sunday?
I need to know how long he's going to be out.
I'd say, I'd say if it's like indefinite still on Sunday, it's getting pretty late. I'd cut him. But like you said, like when you have guys like Isaac Paredes. So for example, Paredes had that little hot stretch in June. Mm-hmm. In July, he hit 190 with 3 home runs. So far in August, and it's the 23rd, he's hitting 196 with no home runs. He hasn't stolen a base all season. So, I just cut him. I actually, at first I'm like, you just cut Pasquantino for sure. He's not he's not that good, and he's hurt, and who knows when he'll be back. I'd cut Paredes first, actually.
I just picked up Paredes as a Donaldson hedge. Because remember, Donaldson missed the weekend with an illness.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
Perez
reason
might
why
have been,
these guys are on the
Perez might
vote.
have been in my waterfall. That is how bad it is. He might have been in my waterfall on Sunday
Yeah.
in at least in a 15-team league. Low, but he was in there, I think.
Yeah. Well, and Pasquantino was starting to heat up too. He had 4 homers last week. I think he was
Yeah.
player of the week. He's
Yep.
actually been pretty good. 350 OBP, 434 slug. Yeah, this hurts. This hurts a lot. Especially because it's hard to find offense. You look at the names that are out there. It's pretty grim.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I first, like I said, my first thought was you have to cut Pasquantino. He's just not established enough to hold him through an IL stint at the end of August. Now I'm like, the more I think about it with some of the options in a 15-team league, if we find out it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks, and you've already eaten one of those weeks, you have to eat one of those weeks now anyways. I might keep him.
Shoulder discomfort for him.
That's not that bad. I feel like it could only be 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
It could be minimum 10 days. Remember, hitters, it's still 10 days.
Right.
It's pitchers, that's 2 weeks.
So like absolute best case scenario, you could have him back for the next weekend.
Right.
Games, so put him in the
Sadly, we had to cut. We had to turn around and cut. Who did we cut? Sir Anthony Dominguez, who was our targeted ad that we really desperately needed. But we have to make those decisions now. You have to be pretty ruthless with your cuts.
Do you still have David Robertson on? It's your main event team, isn't it? With David Robertson,
that's on the other main event team. So I had one. I picked up Dominguez and the one that's doing really well. Robertson was a guy I had from day one, like first fab period in the Vegas main, which is doing all right. It's contending for a cash spot. It won't cash in the overall, but it's at least contending. So, but at least we have Robertson there. But Robertson didn't get the save yesterday because he had pitched the 2 previous days, blown one on Sunday after pitching 2 innings on Saturday. I mean, it was kind of silly for him to pitch, but they just went through so many pitchers in that Sunday game against the Mets. So you asked for miracles, though. I give you the Reds lineup, and that's a good place to start.
Except for Jake Fraley. He's not part of your miracle.
Well, the funny thing is I do have Jake Fraley on the same team as I have Robertson. So let Fraley rake early on and then get pulled when they have a lefty on the mound or something. I don't know. Silly. But it's kind of tricky trying to figure out how you're going to try to figure out who you stream against, who you can use. I mean, right now it's just there's these bad teams are just kind of plugging and playing a bunch of guys. Reds put 2 more guys on the IL right now. Even the Cubs are starting Javier Assad. It's really a time where you have to keep your eye on the ball, and it's as difficult as ever. You and I are doing a football draft tonight. I did this. I'm doing 2 actually at once tonight, so that'll be fun. I didn't tell you I'm doing another one simultaneously.
You did. You told me off air last week. Yeah, I didn't forget that. Yeah, that is pretty impressive.
Just finished a college trip with my daughter. It's back to school next week for the kids. Soccer's starting back up. You really have to use your time wisely because it's hard. And everybody's got stuff. Back to school season. Everybody's got stuff to deal with there, but it can be really difficult to maintain your focus this time of year.
Yes, and something that I think maybe not everyone's kept track of is that the season basically goes a week longer this year, right? A few days longer, few days longer because it started late. So just wherever we are on the calendar, you're thinking, so I did think about that with those players who are injured, like Pasquantino. There's someone else who Byron Buxton went on the IL today. Just while we wait to get timelines for these players, is that August 23rd this year is like a little more at least it's a few days rolled back in comparison to a previous year. I know it doesn't make a huge difference, but it does. We know how standings change at the end of the year. It does make a bit of a difference. We are going to go a little bit further. So again, if people start abandoning their teams in football draft season or when football games start after Labor Day, there's just a few more days for those of us who stay locked in on our baseball teams to move up in those standings, especially the cumulative categories.
That's true. It is true. 6 more fab periods, I believe, instead of
5. I think 5. I'm pretty sure.
Scott was saying 6, but
I think the 6, maybe when he said the 6, I don't know, he was including the one. I'm just going to do a quick look here on my phone. The 20 or the 28th is one, the 4th, 11th, 18th, 25th. Oh, is there one on October 2nd? You're right. There might be 6 more. See, there's so much time left.
Yeah, and
6 more fabs. I'm almost out of
so
money.
much time and not a whole lot of fab left for me
Yeah,
in that one
yeah.
league, but
Not a whole
that's
lot of
okay.
fab, but not a whole lot of options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, point is keep grinding. There's more
Yes.
chances to come back than you think. And
Yep.
if you're leading, don't give, you're not on the home stretch yet. You're not at the 3/4 pull,
Yep.
as Todd
Yep.
or the quarter pull, I guess. Yeah, I did it wrong. I did it exactly wrong. Todd's going to yell at me. Todd always gets mad at the early,
Yeah.
like you get a quarter through the season. People say you're at the quarter pull. No, you're at the 3/4 pull. You still have 3/4 of the race left. Now we're at the quarter pull. We're not at the home stretch. We haven't made that turn yet. We're still got a little bit more to go.
Yeah. We're that's right. So keep your eye on the ball. I hate using that pun, but keep your eye on the ball and keep grinding away, especially as I said in the counting stat categories, because some people are for sure in the bottom half of your league going to draft their fantasy football teams, watch the opening game right after the Thursday after Labor Day, and forget all about this sport of baseball.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, man, let's look at some of the other things that happened. There's a lot going on. Let's start off two of the big items here, actually. Walker Buehler. He's going to probably miss all of 2023. He needed his second Tommy John surgery. When they went in there, they found that he needed to do that there. So you know what? I think that this is a tough one here because the Dodgers are. I mean, they're going to have to figure out their rotation for next year as well. Obviously, keeper leagues, it's a big factor there too. You just don't have them for all of next year.
For sure. Yeah. From a fantasy perspective, he's out for all next year. Like at best, the Dodgers could maybe bring him back as a reliever for the 2023 playoffs or something like that and get a few innings out of him. But from a fantasy perspective, he won't help at all next year. So yeah, I mean, this is something that keeper and dynasty owners deal with, and it's one of the reasons they devalue pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. Some people I know struggle to ignore that philosophy when someone's pitching really well, but then this is how it goes. They can be pitching really well and then poof, it's gone. And it's gone for so long. Like he's going to miss, but the way this all shook down, like the most of this year and all of next year. So yeah, some people in dynasty leagues, he's also someone who people were predicting this going into this year, a lot of regression for. I was very interested to see how this would have turned out. We talked a couple weeks ago about how at the time, everyone in the Dodgers rotation had a whip of 1 or lower. So if Buehler had pitched all year, you'd have to feel like he could have done as well as Tyler Anderson and these other guys, but I don't know, maybe he wouldn't have. But when he comes back, it's the Dodgers. He'll probably be pretty good again.
Yeah, he probably will be.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wild, though, that they had that depth in their rotation. But looking at that now, you figure they weren't going to count on him for much this year. I actually was arguing that they put him in the bullpen when he does come back. I was thinking they get him, but obviously they don't get him now. But looking at maybe for the future, though, that's where it gets a little tricky. So Kershaw's on a year-to-year contract situation there, and he's hurt again. Urias is there, Gonsolin's there, Dustin May's back now. So we got those three. Now it's between what's Anderson's contract like? I think Anderson's probably, I guess they get Danny Duffy next year. Yay.
Yeah.
Contract wise for Anderson, he signed a 1-year deal, so he's not guaranteed to be back. But everything the Dodgers touch turned to gold. So they'll find the next Tyler Anderson if it's not the actual Tyler Anderson.
I know. Part of me assumes that the Dodgers will just go out and sign or a high-priced free agent or trade for a really good pitcher, but maybe not. Maybe they'll just grab a couple more Tyler Andersons and keep rolling.
Yeah, maybe them. Ryan Pepio will be a guy that gets his control, and he'll be a factor next year because he's not really this year yet.
Yeah, it could be. But rest assured, whoever the Dodgers go after, I will be interested in them just because they're putting on that jersey and how much pitching success they've had recently.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Even Tyler Anderson, there's the perfect example, right? He was being drafted outside the top 30 rounds in drafts until now he's on the Dodgers and he's been terrific this year. Yeah, I think in pitching WAR at Fangraphs, he's in the top 20 this year.
It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible indeed. The other big injury item is Fernando Tatis Jr. He's going to deal with his shoulder surgery. This is something that we thought might have happened last offseason. Said he wrecked his motorcycle, tested positive for steroid use for his ringworm. Now he's, the timing works out well. He's going to have that surgery now. He's going to miss the first month of the season anyways. So this gives them a little bit more time for him to rehab that injury. He's allowed to play in spring training, and then he'll have to shut it down for another month.
Right. So, and I mean, in the end, if he has the shoulder surgery and he can't play in spring training, not the end of the world, since he can't come back right at the beginning of the season anyways. I think if you have Tatis in a dynasty league, like, this is probably good news. Like, let's try to get this shoulder sorted out now while he's suspended. Let's just hope that, like, by next year in May when he comes back, or even if he didn't come back till June 1st because of the shoulder, who knows? But whenever he comes back, let's hope he could just be full Tatis if you're someone who has him in a dynasty league. I have no idea what to do with him yet for next year in a redraft league because he's going to miss those games. That being said, if the shoulder surgery goes well and the rehab goes well, he could come back from those games like fully 100%, especially if he could play in spring training, ramp up, and then just kind of keep hitting on the side while he's suspended. I don't know. He could be really good for about 120 games next year.
Yeah, he could. He very well could. So I don't know if I'm going to take him. Like, what do you think he'll go? I mean, middle, like 5th, 6th round? Is that early?
Yep, I do. Again, unless the shoulder surgery leaves it so that if he can't play in spring training, then I think he'll go later than that, maybe more like 7th or 8th round.
Yep.
If he plays in spring training and seems fine, I could see him going in like the 4th or 5th round, because some people just run the projections and project him to play, say, 110 games, and 110 games of full strength Tatis could be like 25 homers and who knows, 15 or 20 steals. So,
yeah.
So I think some of that will depend on that. But yeah, I think high end, like, he's rolling in spring training and everything seems good. Maybe like some people might go into the 4th round on him, 4th, 5th round, but yeah, maybe more like 7th or 8th.
Probably not going to be me, but then again, it's because I've had such a bad experience.
If you were
stashing
drafting
him
tonight for 2023, who would you draft first, Tatis or DeGrom?
DeGrom.
I don't know if I trust that DeGrom can finish this year and pitch next year. Like, at least Tatis, I feel kind of confident I can get 110 games or something out of next year. I don't know if I set the over under right now on 20 starts for DeGrom next year. I don't know if I would take the over on that.
How about Tatis versus Mike Trout versus DeGrom? Who comes last?
If I was drafting today, I'll put DeGrom last just because he's the pitcher who's had the injury trouble. I know he's pitching right now, but he hasn't been back for very long. I'll put him last just because he's the pitcher. If like next year in spring training, then I would move DeGrom up. It's like every time he pitches, there's a risk. Like, I would draft next year DeGrom earlier, right before opening day, than I would early in spring training, because I don't feel like we're out of the woods with him. Trout, someone I was out on this year because of the injury risk, and then that looked really dumb for a while, and now it doesn't look so dumb. Although that being said, like, he hasn't been, like, he's got 24 home runs. I don't know. He hasn't been very good. We'll see how much he does down the stretch, but people were taking him early 2nd round. He might not get to 30 homers this year. He doesn't steal bases at all. His batting average is not that helpful.
Yeah, he strikes out a lot more.
So I think I did end up being right on this one. And my concern was just exactly this, that he, like, when I projected him, and you run SGPs too, so you know how this goes. When I projected him for like 125 games or 120 games or something. And when you did that number, he just came out so low that you couldn't consider him in this, and no steals. And with that, he came out so low. Even if you project him to hit 300 with 33 home runs, like, he's not getting in the 2nd round with no steals.
No, he isn't.
Yeah, even and the lost runs and RBIs from only playing in 120 games.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's really questionable for next year. Also, the Angels' offense is terrible right now.
One of the bottom 4 offenses in baseball. Yeah.
Really, really bad. They've moved like right to the front of the line for me in offenses to try to stream against. Like, I'd probably stream against the Tigers first, and that's about it. They're right there now with me with the A's and the Tigers, Pirates. Yeah, they're like, so now Trout goes back into that offense next year. We don't know if they'll get a full season out of Ohtani next year because Who knows what they'll do with him if they're not in contention? Like, will they trade him? I don't know. Like next summer or whatever. I don't know. It does not look good. I really wish Mike Trout could get on a better team.
There's like and here we're kind of burying the lead a little bit because today it was announced that Artie Moreno is going to sell the team.
Mm-hmm.
And so other teams that have sold the team have sold off a lot of their top players to make a sale look more for some reason that looks good on the books for putative buyers.
Yeah.
Like the Nats recently with Juan Soto. The Marlins, I think, when they were selling off, I think they sold off their players too. So you may see that with the Angels with Ohtani, who only has 1 year left on the contract. Trout's is basically signed in perpetuity. So I think that's a little bit of a different case, but I mean, yeah, I could see them doing that too. The Angels are a bottom 4 offense along with Pittsburgh, Detroit, and Miami basically right now.
Oh, Miami, you're right. They're right at the top of the list of teams to stream against. Yeah. That offense is dreadful.
It is. It's a really tough watch.
Yes. I think Moreno, going back to the Angels for a minute, I believe he said something at the deadline about how I could be wrong on this, but I think he said something about how he felt like his franchise was more appealing with Ohtani in it than with Ohtani off the books.
Yeah.
And then the new owner can do whatever they want with Ohtani, because you can always trade. Someone else can buy the Angels this winter, snap their fingers right away to the new president and say, trade Ohtani.
Yep,
and
that's right.
You're going to be able to trade him. So I think he said he felt like it was more appealing to let the new owner decide whether they want to extend Ohtani or trade him. If they do trade Ohtani, and we're going deep into another rebuild with them, and Mike Trout is 31, just turned. I wonder what that conversation could be like. Like if he might say to them, guys, is there a way to get me out of here? Like, is there a way to get me on a good team? Like his years are, I love Mike.
Yeah.
Years are dwindling.
You know, it's kind of following that Ken Griffey Jr. career path where he's so good for so long.
Yeah.
And then he got hurt. And then after that, he had his moments, but he also had a lot of other moments where he missed a lot of time and was not the same player. Like basically ever since the Reds traded for him, traded for Griffey, that was about that demarcation point. And it feels like Trout's kind of mimicking that, except starting a little earlier, perhaps, which just sucks. I mean, I hate to see a good elite player become not elite. But anyways, before we move on, quick note here from our Blue Wire sponsors, and I'm going to kick the cat out of the room while we do that. Be right back. Thank you for your indulgence there. Little extra intermission, if you will. But sometimes cats are annoying. So this is some time.
I didn't hear the cat, just for the record. Maybe
she was scratching at my desk and she was meowing a couple of times. But yeah, good times. Chris Bryant may not return this year. What a bust he's been. I think he's still waiting for his first Coors Field homer, right?
Didn't realize that, actually. I have 0 shares of Bryant. He has 5 home runs, you're right, and all of them are on the road. Yeah. And
unbelievable. Exact
opposite of what we predicted. In the little amount that he played, almost all of his production came on the road, not just the home runs, everything. Excuse me. Yeah, this has been an awful year. 2021 was fine for him. It wasn't special, like 25 homers, he hit 265. 2020, the shortened season, he was awful for him. 2019 was like fine. 2018 was awful. He only played in 102 games. He only hit 13 home runs. I got to think that Chris Bryant, even with the Colorado Rockies attached to him, is available in the middle rounds of your draft next year. First of all, I think he's a cut right now. Don't you?
Yeah.
Any reason to think that he's going to be back in time to really make any real impact this year?
Yeah. If you have limited IL spots, absolutely. Or no IL spots. Yeah,
like an NFBC type setup, I think he's gone. And if he comes back with 2 weeks left in the season and you or someone wants to pick him back up, then great. But I think now, with things being uncertain, he's gone. And I think next year, round 15, does that sound about right? Maybe around 15, and someone hopes that
he'll go way sooner than that.
He won't go to me then. Sooner than that.
But keep in mind, I mean, he got so much draft helium. He was in the 4th round and some of the NFBC main events. he won't fall all the. I mean, he won't climb all the way back up. But if he's raking in spring training, he's like, yeah, I was dealing with this, and I just didn't say
Yeah.
anything. It was much worse than we let on. Oh, okay, but then again, we've done that song and dance with Bryant too, and that's also got to be held against him, not as a point for him too. So I agree that it won't be on my watch in any significant league, at least at pick after. It'd have to be after pick 100, and it'd probably have to be around 150 or so.
Yeah, I don't think. I bet when I run his projections, I won't even have him there. I probably won't be comfortable projecting him for many steals.
Mm-hmm.
The Coors Field thing may make me give him a decent batting average, but I bet I'll ding him a fair amount of injury time just because he has missed a decent amount of games in some of the recent seasons, and that'll be enough to sewer him.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. So a couple other hitters. O'Neal Cruz, not playing very well. Maybe the Pirates were kind of right about bringing him along slowly. Is that possible?
Every time we dump all over a team, Jared Kelenic all over again, right? Every time we dump all over a team for waiting too long, then the guy doesn't do that well out of the gate, and then we're like, okay, fine. That's why I don't run a Major League Baseball team. But so from a fantasy perspective, it hasn't been all bad. The batting average is terrible, but in 51 games, so basically a third of a season, he's got 10 homers and 6 steals. So triple that. He's on about a 30 homer, 18 steal pace.
Yeah.
That's a really cool power speed mix. It's just you're carrying a 198 batting average to go along with it. Now,
and in real life, 249 OBP.
That's
soul killing.
Yeah, the strikeout to walk rate, like the 77 strikeouts and 201 plate appearances, that's a big concern just for his long-term potential. He's going to be a fascinating guy for next season, just in the sense that if you want to project a decent batting average, then he's going to sit really high in your rankings, because if you project a full year of playing time and a decent batting average, like you're going to have him projected for 25 homers and 15 steals or something like that. He's going to sit really high in your rankings. But if you don't project a good batting average, it'll be all, then you probably shouldn't project him for a full year of playing time, because he may not. A little bit like Jazz Chisholm this year, where he could get really high in your rankings if you wanted to, like if you gave him a lot of playing time. But then if you didn't really believe in Jazz Chisholm, then you probably shouldn't draft him. Chisholm went about round 6 or 7. I don't know if Cruz quite gets that high next year. Oh yeah, I think he will. I think someone will dream on him. I think he'll get almost that high.
Yeah. I'm trying to compare. So O'Neal's got a 58.8% contact rate. So he's earning that 198.
Yeah. He's not ready or he's not showing he's ready.
Yeah. You mentioned Chisholm. Chisholm at his, last year struck out a lot, 68.8% contact percentage. So O'Neal Cruz is at a whole different level here.
Yeah, I just thought of Chisholm as someone who I know when I did my projections, because last year he had 18 homers and 23 steals.
Yeah.
And now you're right. He hasn't produced the low batting average that Cruz has. I just know that Chisholm was someone where if you projected him for a full season of games, then he was looking like really high in your rankings. But then there was just this nagging part of me that was like, is Jazz Chisholm really good enough? He came into the year with about a 700 career OPS, and you were like, is Jazz Chisholm really good enough to hold a starting job all year in the majors? Turns out he was off to a great start, and then he got hurt. So I just think Cruz will be in that boomer bust article that we all write next year in March.
Yeah,
right. He could cut the strikeout rate, even if he could hit 240. He could cut the strikeout rate, and he could maybe hit 30 home runs, steal 20 bases, or he could spend time in the minors.
Yeah. Both. These are on the range of outcomes here.
Yeah.
He's really struggling though altogether. And I think he's kind of, sometimes when you do that sort of speculation, you get 2021 Tyler O'Neill. Sometimes you get 2022 Tyler O'Neill, who has just been a disaster this year.
Yeah. And then if I want to get into some like really, really non-scientific speculation, like Cruz is also, he's a big dude. He's 6'7", right? Like big, long arms.
Sometimes those guys lose the strike zone easier.
Right. Long swing. Can with those big long arms and big body, he can turn on something and he can get you some home runs, and long legs and he can fly and he can get you some steals. But there's holes, probably big strike zone, and there's probably some holes in there. And like we talked about at the very beginning, if you have holes right now, opposing pitchers are finding them around baseball.
Yeah, driving a truck through them right now.
That's why the scores are down.
Yeah. Well, and Tyler O'Neill last year actually struck out more last year than he did this year. 31% strikeout rate last year, 28% this year. But the quality of his contact is way off. Tyler O'Neill had a 274 ISO last year, 121 this year. They sat him for the first game of the doubleheader. Now they have 8 games this week, so maybe it's just a case there where everybody's going to rest a little bit. But point being is he's way off his game compared to last year.
Yep. No, absolutely. Yep.
And another guy that's quietly, sneakily struggled quite a bit is Tommy Edmond, who was really red hot at the start of the season. But you look now, and he's got a 678 OPS. He is just as bad as last year. He gets you, his stolen bases are paying the bills fantasy-wise, but as a real-life hitter, he's not that great.
No, Tommy Edmond, I think it will be someone I'll always remember. Tommy Edmond, 22, is that guy who everybody took the Twitter victory laps on in April. And I saw a lot of people saying, hey, I nailed him as a sleeper and kept him to myself. And here he had an 881 OPS in April. He hit 300. Didn't steal more bases than usual, but he stole 5. So that's good. Like, that's putting him on a 30 steal pace. But since then, and overall this year, his OPS is lower this year than it was any of his previous years, just a little bit, but it's lower than it was his previous years. He looks just like Tommy Edmond. He'll probably finish the year with about 10 homers, 10 or 11 homers. He'll probably finish the year with about 30 steals, which is exactly what he stole last year. His batting average is a little lower than last year. Like, there's a really good chance that after all the ups and downs, he's going to finish this year with almost the exact same stat line as last season.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's what this is what Tommy Edmond is. It's just this year it came heavy in the beginning and then tailed off. I don't know. I think this is what he is.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, he's a better on base guy than Jorge Mateo, for instance, but Mateo has been more valuable fantasy wise, although he scored fewer runs. I mean, I say that, but then you look and it's not just fewer runs, it's 25 fewer runs. I mean, Edmund really does help you there. 77 runs scored is nothing to sneeze at here, but a lot of those came weighted early too, though.
Yes, and Edmund's getting almost all of his plate appearances this year have come into the leadoff spot. And when you we've already talked about how good the Cardinals offense has been this year, but when you look at Edmund, like, he shouldn't be the leadoff hitter for a good offense. No. Like, his OPS out of the leadoff spot is 674. His on base percentage of the leadoff spot is 321. Like, he shouldn't be the leadoff. He should not be the leadoff hitter on a playoff team. They should be striving. I know Dylan Carlson's gotten opportunities in the leadoff spot, but most of Edmund's plate appearances overall this year. So going into next year, if you don't think he's going to be their leadoff hitter, and again, he's one of those guys who goes from 1 to 9. He doesn't stop at hitting 5th. He's not hitting 1st. He's probably hitting 8th or 9th. So, and that's been the thing for Mateo, is most of his plate appearances this year came from 9th. And the second most came from 8th, and the third most come from 7th. So he hasn't got a lot of opportunities to hit higher in the lineup, and that's where the runs scored are coming from with Edmond. Not really earning them.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a couple more hitters and a couple pitchers before we sign off. But first, a quick note from our friends at Caesars. Caesars, we're thankful that they are sponsoring us. The weather is heating up, and so are the promotions at Caesars Sportsbook. Today, anyone who is at least 21 years old and in a licensed Caesars Sportsbook state can create a new account and redeem the Caesars Sportsbook promo code ROTO15. That's ROTO15. The promo gives new users a risk-free first bet up to $1,500. Visit Caesars.com/sportsbooks or download the Caesars Sportsbook app today. And don't forget to use promo code ROTO15 when signing up. Fred, you mentioned in the outline that you're going to take the L on Adolis Garcia. And that's actually one of the guys that one of the guys that's still producing for me in Tout Wars. My AL Tout Wars team is just a sad, slow decline. I can't seem to dig myself out of, but at least I got Adolis Garcia going for me there. And he's just been the guy that's just kept on going, producing quite a bit.
Yeah, so he's another example, like Edmund, he's another example of someone who's more valuable in fantasy than real baseball. Like, he hasn't been a great real baseball player this year, 749 OPS, but I thought I had him last year on my main event team, and I watched him go pretty steadily south, after getting off to a good start. So I just pulled up his 2021. So July batting average 216, August 227, September 216. Like, he was pretty good in April, really good in May, and then pretty bad after that. And I just assumed like pitchers have figured this guy out. He had some immediate success. I think he's going to be like a 6-something OPS guy this year. Yeah, and then he also stole 7 bases last year in September, which kind of came out of, a little bit out of the blue. He's getting kind of 1 steal a month going into September, mostly. But he's actually carried the steals aggressiveness forward into this year, and he's got 19, and he's been a better hitter than I thought. So
Yeah.
He's a really cool power speed mix kind of guy, which you could really use this year. Guys who can get you some steals, like he's going to finish the season somewhere in the 20s, and then also help you with home runs. He's not hurting your batting average. I was wrong on him this year. I think I was wrong on him a little bit for some of the right reasons. He struck out 194 times last year.
Right.
He tailed off dramatically. I don't know why people thought he was going to rebound, but he did to some degree. He rebounded. So good for him.
Yeah. Chances that he will be overdrafted next year, I would say, are pretty high, though.
Yeah, I will kind of recalibrate, and I will give him probably a little more credit. He's going to still finish this year. Like I said, he struck out 194 times last year. He's not going to get to 194 this year, but he might get to 175 or something like that. So I still have batting average concerns. But his BABIP this year is 316. That's not crazy high. If I start to think he could repeat 15 to 20 steals, if I think he could hit 240 to 250, get you 20 something home runs if the playing time's there. I don't know. I could be back in on him next year. Depends what the round is, but I think I could be back in at market value for him next year.
Yeah. He'll go more expensive next year. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Line drive rate's up 5% once from 16 to 21. So that does support some better results. K percentage is slightly down, 31 to 28. Contact rate 66.6 to 69.8. So little things here and there. Walk rate's still below 6, but it's up to 5.8 from 5.1. Star Platinum says in the 6th round or 7th round draft that happened the other day, Rob DiPietro was hosting that draft. Garcia didn't go in the first 7 rounds. So maybe he's still going to be relatively affordable. But then again, we'll see after everybody crunches the numbers and we see like the final number where he ends up at too. Garcia could be, you're looking at a guy that he could be 30-30. I mean, it would take a bit of a rush in the last 6 weeks to happen. He's at 2019. So 25-25 he could be, which, hey, that's a good season. That's a really hard combination to find.
Yeah, I mean, I can go back to the Jazz Chisholm comparison. Like that's kind of what we were looking for from him. 250 batting average, 25-25, something like that. If you think that Garcia can do that, then yeah, he gets in. Chisholm was kind of at round 6 this year. So I think Garcia, I think that he'll be around that point. I don't know if I'll jump in at that point. I think I have to fall to rounds like 8 or 9 for me. I don't know. We'll see. There's still some time left, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a bit about, a couple of pitchers before we sign off. Jordan Montgomery, another good outing. Baffling trade by the Yankees, just getting shoved in their face yet again.
Yeah, I remember we talked right after the deadline, and I said, I don't know how much better they got at pitcher. And you said, oh, Frankie Montas is way better than Jordan Montgomery. And you might still be right.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Montas goes tonight against the Mets.
It's just interesting that Montgomery shifted to a much better, I think, opportunity for a pitcher. He's at a Yankee Stadium. He's on a Cardinals team that typically does really well with their pitchers. I don't know. I felt like this was the NL Central has some really manageable offenses to face. He shut one of them down last night. And then Montas goes from Oakland, great place to pitch, to New York, not as great place to pitch. You're switching clubhouses. I don't know. I felt like, and the Yankees have played really poorly in August, and I think some fans or maybe guys in the clubhouse have to be sitting there being like, hey, we didn't even get any better in the rotation, at least not so far. Right. And then the hitter we traded for is hurt. So we'll see what we get out of Harrison Bader, but he's hurt and we still don't even have a return date for him. I don't know. It doesn't feel good for a team that was out in front of the American League at the trade deadline. They got Scott Efros.
He's hurt.
Fine. Their bullpen, all of a sudden the Yankees bullpen looks weak.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Chapman's still awful.
They passed over Chapman last night for Loaizaga, who got the save, and they had Wandy Peralta as the guy that was warming up in case Loaizaga needed help, because Loaizaga got the last out of the 8th inning too. Allowed him to stay and get the save. If this is we can go back in the time machine and say, hey, in March, we told you Loaizaga is going to be the guy that's behind Chapman, except now he's in front of Chapman. Chapman, I mean, that blown save over the weekend, it was the same old stuff that he had before he went on the IL. You know, it was just utter loss of command again. And he's afraid to throw his fastball.
Yeah, Chapman's awful. Like he's just not. I don't know. I guess that's a little harsh, but he's just not good enough right now to be trusted in high leverage roles. Yeah, on the weekend he pitched against the Blue Jays once. He got 1 out. He walked 2 batters. The appearance before that against the Rays, he got 2 outs. He walked 2 batters. It's just not. He got 1 strikeout between those before. I don't know. He's just not there. He can't be used in high leverage situations right now. So Holmes is out. When he comes back, he's got to go back into high leverage situations almost right away because I feel like they're desperate. King's gone for the year. Like you said, Efros, we're not sure on now. All of a sudden, the Yankees look really vulnerable in the bullpen, and we're not sure what's going on with Montas in the rotation. They kind of miss Montgomery right now. Bader's going to come back and play for them, but he's not going to change their offense too.
No.
Like he's going to play, but he's not going to be like a great.
They got him for his defense, though.
For sure, and maybe that helps. You can't stop Chapman from walking guys, but maybe he'll help. But I can't see Harrison Bader turning the team around. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. Like my Jays were playing them on the weekend, and people were trying to speculate, like maybe, especially when they won the first 3 in the series, maybe they could catch them. I still don't think anyone can catch them. I think the lead's just too big. But I don't know. I think they're in a bad way right now. They'll get Stanton back this weekend, and that'll help. But I think they're in a bad way right now.
But it's just so amazing that everything is kind of falling apart when they were just firing on all cylinders before. It's hard to see, but especially I guess it showed just how much work Judge was doing. So Judge goes through a slump, and all of a sudden this lineup seems pretty thin. And when Judge is on fire, it's a completely different team.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, and also even just choices on the trade market, like the Mariners pick up Luis Castillo. He's been great. The other kind of 1A pitcher that everybody said was available was Montas. It was Castillo Montas. Who was going to go for more? Who were you going to get?
Yeah.
Castillo.
And the Reds got a better package.
Not to say Castillo would have been great if he was on the Yankees, but he's been great for the Mariners. And Montas has been awful for the Yankees. And right now, if you're a Yankees fan, you're saying, man, we should have thrown in another prospect or two and just gotten Castillo instead of getting Montas. We'll see. I think Montas is a good pitcher. I think he could turn this around.
Right.
Like pretty quick, but the rotation's gone backwards. The bullpen's gone backwards. The lineup's gone backwards.
Well, look at the Padres. They won the trade deadline, but they haven't won a whole lot since. Sometimes you get that immediate bounce. Other times you don't. I still like what the Padres did. I still think it's a good thing for baseball, and I hope that they rally, but just because I don't want to see teams not try and say, "Well, see, you look at the Padres. They're not going to win. Why should we do that?" And all that. And then let that be like the takeaway from that instead of saying some players aren't performing. I mean, I think the Tatis thing just really crushed the Padres.
Yeah, talk about that's as big of an up and down as you'll ever see in like a 2 or 3 week span for a team. Like to trade for Hader and Soto within 24 hours of each other and just be like completely dominating the headlines, and then come out and initially, you look good. Then you go in and play the Dodgers and you get swept. And then a couple weeks after that, Tatis is out for the season. Like it's just the highs and lows from the Padres. We'll see if they still have tons of talent. Like we'll see if they can settle in and win a playoff series and get in at least the second round. I mean, they're falling. It wouldn't be the end of the world if they fell down to the last playoff spot and played maybe the Cardinals. To me, that's just as manageable or more so than playing the Braves. Yeah, at least it's not like it's going to hurt them, I think, in any way. So I think it's probably about the same. So
agreed.
I don't know. It's just, I think the Tatis thing, it shouldn't, but it has. I think it's really taken the wind out of their sails.
I think it has too. Well, the fact that that and Josh Hader is just lost right now.
That was the other one, right? And the Brewers players were mad because we traded away a superstar closer, but they didn't trade away a superstar closer. They traded away a guy who was struggling and still hasn't got back in action. Don't even ask me where he's going to go next year. I don't think either one of us could give an educated guess on where he'll get drafted next year because that will be completely written in September. Like
I got to check out Rob's the Zoom that he did on that one there for that draft to see, because certainly he got drafted.
Yep.
Someone had to have wanted to put him in among the top closers, but the thing is, he was struggling some before the trade too.
Yes, early July he struggled badly, and then he got his act together late July, second half of July, and then now he struggled. Like, we could have any scenario with Hader, from him finishing the season pitching low leverage situations and not being trusted at all, to him regaining at some point in September the Padres closer's role. And then goes into the offseason, and we're like, hey, he was really inconsistent, but we all know how good he can be. So yeah, I couldn't even guess. He could be anything next year, from like round 5 or 6 to, who knows, doesn't have a closer's role.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Very much it could be. Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to cut a little shorter tonight. Fred and I, actually, as alluded, have football drafts to get prepare for. I might have 2 at once, so going to jump in on that, going to get ready for that. But appreciate everybody's engagement and involvement here, and we'll be back at you again next Tuesday. Take care.